Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living. I'm Reverend Mary Murray Shelton, the community spiritual leader here, just back from a week off and feeling frisky and rejuvenated. Not quite on time, but, catching up. So, this is our opportunity to say good morning to one another. Now, if you've never been here before, I want you to know this is a place where whoever you are, wherever you may be on your pathway of faith, you're welcome here. So this is our time to welcome each other. So please stand, go say hello to everybody, even people that are on their phones. Introduce yourselves to people you haven't seen in a while or haven't met, and just generally make one another welcome. And we'll be back in just a moment to sing our opening song. So for those of you who are online, take this moment to give yourself a little extra love as well. Maybe pour another cup of coffee and get ready for a lovely morning. We'll be right back with you. All right, come on back. Yes, here we are. This is a lovely morning for us here at Golden Gate because we have one of our favorite musicians back online, and I know that he is going to be in town in January. So there's some conversation about possibly having him do a concert when he's here in January. So he could do live music and then do a concert for us. So I think I'll explore that with him further. Would you like that? Yeah? Yeah. Okay, good. So I want to tell you about Daniel Nahmod in case you've never heard him here, if you've not been here before or you've been asleep on Sunday morning a lot. Daniel has been one of our guest musicians on the screen many times. We love him. He has performed music that he's written music that's been performed all over the world on shows like The Voice, American Idol, the Super Bowl, the Today Show, Saturday Night Live. And he has sold, and this was a while ago, so I'll bet there are more now, 110,000 CDs. 110,000 all over the world. But he especially likes us. So please stand and let's join Daniel Nahmod in the opening song. Now, this isn't one that we've done with him before, but you'll catch on to it pretty quick, I think. So here we go.
Good morning, Golden Gate. It's Daniel Nahmod. Hey, this morning's about courage. Courage, as I like to think of it. Sorry, Wizard of Oz reference. That makes sense. Anyway, I have a few songs for you today that I hope you'll enjoy. Let's begin with this one, which serves as a nice little reminder, at least for me, that I worry too much and risk, perhaps, too little. There is more than enough in a universe that you created. There is more than enough on a planet of sacred design. There is more than enough for humanity made in your image. Why would I worry? Why would I doubt? Why would I ever think I'd go without? Why would I worry? Why would I doubt? Why would I ever think I'd go without? Sing the verse again with me, you ready? There is more than enough in a universe that you created. There is more than enough on a planet of sacred design. There is more than enough for humanity made in your image. Why would I worry? Why would I worry? Why would I doubt? Why would I I'd go without. Your infinite love made me, made everything I see, and all that will ever be is your infinite love. Let my soul know the truth, whatever I choose to do, your infinite love will prove more than enough. Your infinite love made me, made everything I see, and all that will ever be is your infinite love. Let the world know the truth, whatever we choose to do, your infinite love will prove more than enough, more than enough, more than enough.
Yay!
Nice job.
Give
Good
yourself
morning.
a hand. Thank you, Daniel.
See
He'll
you.
be back in just a little bit. All right. So now we're going to take a moment to prepare to just go within and to center ourselves so that we can be prepared for this lovely service this morning. And I see that my morning practitioner is not here. Galen, would you like to pray us in? All right. So Galen Cooper is one of our licensed prayer practitioners, and she's going to do the honors this morning. Thank you, Galen.
God, you guys look so wonderful. Let's just take a deep breath and just know that there is one perfect power. There is one whole unity. There is one love that is ever present everywhere. And that love is within myself, and that love is within you at this moment now. And I know that this service is divinely guided. I know that Mary is the source of inspiration downloaded to her from the divine presence that is ever within. And knowing that this whole truth is nothing more than the truth, I just give thanks for this perfect place that we are in, this perfect service that we are in, and the love that emanates all of us, to us, from us, everywhere in the universe. And this is true, and I let it go, and I give it to the one perfect presence and power. And I say, and so it is.
And so it is. Thank you, Galen. Oh, we did that already. Here we go.
Ran away from the sun, ran away from the rain, hid away from everyone, ran away from the pain. Now I'm so out of breath, now I'm so scared to death that I'm not running anymore. I'm not hiding anymore. For the first time in my life, I will stand my ground. No more running round. Here I am. What's a life covered up? Day and night, just not to fail. Like a life without love is its own kind of jail. And what a waste to regret what I haven't haven't tried yet. I'm not running anymore. I'm not hiding anymore. For the first time in my life, I will stand my ground with my heart unbound. Here I am. Throw in the game just to make sure that I never win. Kept counting myself out again and again. So nervous, running in circles till nobody knew where I'd been. Well, maybe today is the day that I let it all in. Maybe my secret hurt's no original sin. It's time, I've made up my mind. I'm ready to dive in. I'm not running anymore. I'm not hiding anymore. For the first time in my life, I will stand my ground. I will sing out loud. Here I am. Oh, yeah. Here I am. Oh, yeah. Here I am.
For anybody that is not already awake, hopefully that worked well for you to get you back with us right here and right now. So it seems really appropriate to me that we're talking about living out loud this year, and today is about courage. So I understand that Reverend Georgia told you last week that she'd never seen The Wizard of Oz. I'm stunned. I didn't think there was anybody alive in America who had never seen The Wizard of Oz. So very courageous of her last week to step up and take that on, since she didn't know what the details of that were. But we're talking today from the Cowardly Lion's perspective. One of his lines, when he starts to speak about being courageous, doing this thing that he wants to do, what he's going to do. He's going to march into this castle. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. And he said, I only want one thing from you guys. And they said, what's that? He goes, talk me out of it. So that, I think, is a good idea of how these things can feel sometimes when we're facing something that confronts us that we'd rather not do, but we kind of know we really need to do it. So this is a slight variation on that. As you know, I was in New Mexico this past week to perform my son's wedding. Now, we've got some details about that I want to share with you, and I'm going to show you a few pictures. One of their, oh my goodness, it is really pouring. Hallelujah. Thank you, God. Nice job. Anyway, what was I saying? Okay, so Virginia, his wife, used to live in Albuquerque, and she knew about the Hot Air Balloon Festival and had told Luke about it. And he said, why don't we go there for our wedding? She had performed a wedding for some friends who got in a hot air balloon and flew away, and so they said, let's do that. Well, they had gone through 2 different pilots who said yes, sent them information, and then for some reason couldn't do it. So they'd gotten all excited, told everybody, and then had a letdown, got all excited again, told everybody, had another letdown, had to cancel it with everybody. And we were all going to go to the Hot Air Balloon Festival on this, Funny Shapes Day on Friday the 13th anyway. So we decided we'd just go. And then Thursday night, so we're talking about, we're going to get up at 3 o'clock in the morning to go from where we are near Santa Fe to Albuquerque to see the early balloons, the tests go up and see if how the atmosphere is, and then watch this whole great balloon rise. And my son, Luke, takes me aside and says, Mom, plans have changed a little bit. He said, one of Virginia's friends works on a balloon team, and she was really upset that they weren't going to get this wedding that they wanted, this little wedding, with the balloon. And so she talked to her team, and they said, well, that's not right. They want to do this for their wedding. We're going to take them. Now, this little balloon holds 3 people. And generally, they don't take up guests at the festival. So it was the pilot and the 2 of them. And as he's explaining this change to me, which means I've got to go quick figure out what the ceremony at the balloon is going to be, because I had learned we weren't doing it, right? So still planning on doing the hand fasting later that day. Okay, so 2 ceremonies now in one day. And meanwhile, Virginia's whole family's there, and Luke's got me over on the couch quietly explaining all this, and I see Virginia sneak in going, like she's afraid I'm going to freak out about this. It was like, it's okay, calm down, it's fine. So we got up at 3 o'clock in the morning, and we went out to the field. Now, when we got there, we saw them beginning with the test balloons first. So it was pitch dark. It's about 5 in the morning, right? And then this is a picture they took before they got on the balloon. Her mother, so they have these Mr. and Mrs. Knitted caps, and her mother made a veil, which she wore on the knitted cap. So, and she also made these, the bouquet, which is all sort of wood flowers and stuff that doesn't wilt and, will hold up. And so then we did the ceremony. They're in the balloon, right? And the guys are all around. Now, the guys on the team, men and women, they rented black bow ties to wear with their gear, right? They bought champagne. They sang them going to the chapel, but instead of going to the chapel, it was going to fiesta, and we're gonna get married. So they did that, and we did the wedding. And they were officially, once again, but not for the whole family yet, bonded in marriage, and that's their balloon as they took off into the sky, and that's what they could see from up in the air. So that was the first wedding. That was the first wedding. Then we went back to the Airbnb where we were going to do a ceremony that evening at this gazebo outside. And they set up lights along the pathway because we were doing it about 5:30. It wasn't dark yet, but it was, getting dimmer. And got that all set up. And we stood inside the gazebo, and everybody stood or had chairs, around the gazebo as we prepared to do this. And we were doing a hand fasting ceremony, a Celtic hand fasting ceremony. So this was new to everybody who was there. All of Virginia's relatives from Oklahoma who could come, and my ex-husband and his wife who had their RV that we stayed in with them. There were like 19 of us all together. And we passed the ring around, the rings in a box so that everybody could do a ring warming blessing. And this was the cake. Virginia's mother made this from scratch and decorated it from scratch, this beautiful cake. And so that was the ceremony, and off they go into their life. And I said at the end, now this is the finish of their 3rd wedding ceremony. So these 2 are well and truly sealed in marriage now. So that was their experiment on walking the yellow brick road, because one of the things we know about the process of following the yellow brick road is that there are turns and unexpected forks in the road and changes that you don't expect and have to adjust to. Lions and tigers and bears, oh my, right? So this was their adjustment, and our adjustment really for all of us in following this dream of theirs and coming into this situation. So the thing that we know about the scarecrow and the tin man and the lion is that the things that they're hoping for, as I talked about 3 weeks ago, the intuition that leads them to stick together and to go on this journey where they don't really know what's going to happen on the way, leads them onward. And that the Tin Man brings a sense of compassion to the group, right? He brings that kindness, that mindfulness to the group because he's so tenderhearted. Every time he cries, he rests. So they have to carry an oil can to make sure they can get his mouth open again, after he's cried. Then we come to the Cowardly Lion. Now, we would think that because he's a coward, he would always be quaking in his boots, hiding somewhere, which indeed has been his life, pretty much, up until now. He says he can't sleep. The Scarecrow suggests he counts sheep. He says, that doesn't help. I'm afraid of him. So this process goes on with the lion. Finally be invited to join the, excuse me, to join them on the journey, which he does. So when we consider being brave, being courageous, because I do make a distinction, maybe it's a frivolous distinction between the two, between bravery and courage. I think of bravery as an automatic reaction to something where you see it happening and you feel the impulse to do something about it to help, and you do that automatically right now. Courage, I think of as a situation in which you see it coming and you know what the risks are, and you have to decide to take action in spite of the risks. So who do we see then that really has courage? Well, we see our servants, our public servants. We see firefighters, we see police officers, we see people who serve in elected offices a lot of times, who face sometimes danger they hadn't been expecting. We have a friend who is a young firefighter, and his very first year after he graduated from his training as a firefighter was in 2017 in Santa Rosa, when everything was on fire, it seemed like. And that was his initiation as a fireman into that whole thing. They pulled up to Coffee Lane, and where they were supposed to meet up with other fire trucks to disseminate out from there, the place that they were going to meet had burned down. When he got there, it was on fire. So the whole experience required courage and bravery. He had to be able to react fast without getting lost in his head, but he knew all the risks. Practically speaking, he'd never done it actually in this way, but he did it. So our courage is our ability to take action in the face of fear, in spite of the fear, to not let it stop us, but also to be aware, to be mindful of how we're going about it and what we're choosing. Courage, it really doesn't exist unless there's fear. Someone who's fearless isn't courageous. They might be foolhardy, but they're not courageous. They don't need to be courageous. But somebody who recognizes the risks and feels the fear, for them to go forward, that requires real courage. And so who is it that truly is courageous? It's anybody who's fearful and still goes ahead and takes action anyway. There's a little story here. An American general, a Russian general, and a British general were standing on the deck of a ship watching war exercises when the topic of their conversation turned to courage. And the Russian general boasted, "Russians are most courageous people on earth." And not to be outdone, the American general challenged him. "Oh, yeah?" Russian replied, "Da, Yuri, jump off deck and swim around ship." And Yuri immediately jumps into the freezing water, the Atlantic, without a word, and he does as he was told. So the Russian turns to the American, and he says, "There is example of Russian courage." Now the American, of course, had to top this. Maybe he was from Texas. He called one of his men over and gave the order, "Jack, Jump off the main mast into the ocean and swim around the ship 7 times. And without a murmur, Jack goes off and follows orders. And the American general brags, top that for courage. Well, now the American and the Russian generals, they turn to the British general. And he's been watching all of these antics silently. What about your people? They ask him. The British general calls one of his men over and says, Trevor, jump off the mast and swim under the keel of the ship, old chap. And Trevor stares at him. He says, let me be sure I understand you, sir. You want me to jump off the mast? Correct. And swim under the keel? Correct. You must be daft, sir. And Trevor turned and sauntered away. And the British general turned to the other two and said, now there is an example of real courage. So, Pema Chodron, the Buddhist monk who is the abbess of a monastery in Canada, told this wonderful story about herself. Let's see, do I have it here? She said, oh yeah, here it is. She said, this is from her book, When Things Fall Apart, Heart Advice for Difficult Times, which I highly recommend. She said, when I was first married, my husband said I was one of the bravest people he knew. And when I asked him why, he said, because I was a complete coward, but went ahead and did things anyway. And that is such a great compliment that he gave her, the recognition that it took grit to go ahead, even though she was absolutely scared to death to do things. Nelson Mandela said, I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it. The brave man is not he who does not feel afraid, but he who conquers that fear. And you can imagine when he was imprisoned, how frightening that must have been to not know how long he was going to be held, if he'd ever see his family again, if he was going to be fed, if he was going to survive, or how he would be treated. And even in that courage of pushing that fear aside and hanging in there, even more so to me, the idea of creating a reconciliation commission in South Africa after all that. What a brilliant vision of what could be in South Africa. And you've got to believe it took courage for him to put that idea forward. But then it actually worked. I mean, not that everything's perfect in South Africa, but change began to happen because of that. So his fear didn't stop him from doing what needed to be done, what he could see that needed to be done. This comes from the book of Matthew, but this same story, in slight variations, is also in the book of Mark and the book of Luke. This is after Jesus feeds 5,000 people, and all these people have surrounded him, and somebody has a few loaves of bread and a few fish, and somehow or other he feeds 5,000 people. That's what the story says, right? And then they collect everything left over, and they have baskets and baskets and baskets of fish and bread left over. So right after that, he's, I would imagine, a little taxed. And it says, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side, while he dismissed the crowds. And after he'd sent them away, he went up on the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone, but the boat was already far from the land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. And during the fourth watch of the night, which is between 3 and 6 a.m., during the fourth watch of the night, Jesus went out to them walking on the sea. Now remember, it wasn't like glass either. This was choppy and wavy from the wind, and yet he came to them walking across the water, the story says. So when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified. Of course they were. Wouldn't that be a little weird? It's a ghost, they said. Oh my God, it's a ghost. And they cried out in fear. So Jesus called out to them, and he said, take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid. And Peter said, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. "Come," Jesus said. So Peter got down out of the boat, began to walk on the water over to Jesus. But when he saw how strong the wind was, he became very afraid and he started to sink. And he cried out, "Lord, save me." And immediately Jesus reached out his hand, took hold of Peter, and lifted him up, and then said, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" Like it was the most natural thing in the world to be walking on the water in a storm. Why did you doubt? It kind of reminds me of when Ernest Holmes says in The Science of Mind, the first thing to do is love everybody. If you have not done this already, begin at once. And it always makes me laugh. Love everybody. Wow, that's a big order, yeah? Some people are more difficult to love than others, usually ourselves. So we want to see then, of what value is it really for us to be courageous? Like, aren't we risking a lot when we choose to be courageous? What is the practical value of it, really, for us? What do we get out of that? Well, for us, the practical value is that as we take action when we're afraid, our freedom increases, as does our faith and our recognition that we do have courage. And those things are really valuable for us to have and to recognize. Also, we discover that we're more than we knew. We're more than we imagined that we were. And that's important too, because what it does for others then is it gives them an example of leadership, hope that they can have the courage themselves and inspiration to try. So when that happens and somebody catches that from us, their courage is stoked. Whether they're able to act on it yet or not, their courage is stoked into greater possibility. And as more people are inspired by each other, it becomes easier to have more courage and to step forward and try and to believe that we can. And imagine if we were all that courageous, what our world would look like. Because I think the greatest virus infecting humanity is not COVID or polio or any of the things we get vaccinations for. It's fear. We're, as a species, human beings, we're pretty fearful. We're afraid of anything that we think might cause us discomfort, not just stuff we think might actually physically hurt us. And we tend to avoid those situations, which makes us and our lives smaller and more contained. So when we take courage to act, even if it's something small that requires some courage on our part, what happens is our freedom increases because there are more things we can do and more places we can be when we're not so afraid. And I love the story of, Ram Dass told this story of a monk. There's a great general who comes through with an army and they're killing all the monks. And they finally come to the abbot. And he's not quaking in his boots, he's not running, he's not surrendering. And the general says to him, "Don't you know who I am? I could take this sword and run it through your belly without blinking an eye." And the monk very calmly looks at him and he says, "And don't you know who I am? I could let you run your sword through my belly without blinking an eye." And the samurai bows down to him and becomes his student. He is perhaps not such an example of courage because maybe he really isn't afraid. When he says, I could have you do that without blinking an eye, it's an example of the deep groundedness and focus of accepting the present moment and allowing it to unfold exactly as it is. And that allows us a great deal of freedom. We have a lot of freedom of choice in terms of how we respond when stuff happens that scares us or that we don't like, when we are in that practice of being grounded and centered. So having the opportunity to give that to other people is a big deal. Winston Churchill said, "Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. And Maya Angelou said, and this I think is beautiful, courage is the most important of all the virtues, because without courage, you can't practice any other virtue consistently. You can practice any virtue erratically, but nothing consistently without courage. And that seems really true to me, because the virtues, the values that we want to live with, good morning, the values that we want to live with, there will be times when we'll be challenged about those values. And the test is whether we abandon them in those moments when times are difficult, or if we come back to what we know and believe and say we believe, and we live from that right through what is difficult for us. Does this make sense? You with me here? Hello, yes, everybody still awake? Okay. Just checking. Sometimes it's the courage to try something that seems impossible, or to do something nobody else is doing, or to push through an obstacle with such perseverance and constancy that we make an impact where no one else has been able to do it, or it doesn't even look like it's possible. Like this flower coming up through the pavement, through the cobblestones. We see weeds and flowers do that all the time. Any little tiny crack, suddenly you'll see something green coming out. Like, how did it do that? How did the seed even find that little spot? How did it possibly get enough water? We don't know, but they do it. So when we see these flowers coming up, what we recognize is that, as an example to us, applying our courage in the face of what appears to be an insurmountable difficulty reveals our resilience and our strength to adapt, to shift, to recognize what is and find a way to coexist with it somehow, or to work with it somehow, so that we continue to thrive, even though whatever it is looked like it was going to be an obstacle to us. Steve Jobs said, "Have the courage to follow your heart and your intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. Have the courage to follow your heart and your intuition." He's not saying follow your analytical mind. He's saying follow your intuition, that which guides you, that you become aware of as a pull or an attraction. Follow that and try not to overthink it. Eleanor Roosevelt said, "We gain strength and courage and confidence by each experience in which we really stop to look fear in the face. We must do that which we think we cannot." What an amazing thing for a first lady to say. We must do the thing we think we cannot. Now think about your life. As I'm thinking about my life over, looking back over the years, I can see how many things I experienced or did that I never would have imagined I would ever do or try. Parasailing. I can't even think of anything else at the moment, but or being up at Lake Tahoe at a resort in the snow in a hot tub with people who said, "Let's get out and roll in the snow," and get back in the, and actually doing that, which I guarantee you is not the kind of thing I do. So just deciding to give something a try like that, there are many things in our lives that we have done that we would never have thought we were capable of doing, of really facing and doing. And afterwards, we probably feel a combination of pride in ourselves, relief that we survived it, whatever it was, and inspiration that there is more to us than we knew or than we thought we had. Eckhart Tolle said, "Real inner growth usually does not come when things are going well. That's not when awakening happens. Awakening comes when chaos breaks into your life, when you're really out of your comfort zone." And boy, I got to tell you, I like to cling to my comfort zone. Anybody else like that? I really like to be comfortable. My Russian host in Moscow once said to me, I can't remember what I said to her about discomfort. And she said, oh, you Americans, you need to be so comfortable all the time. She said, you know, if you always need to be comfortable, you miss a lot. And I thought, I think that's probably really wise, what she just said. I got to think about that. So what we discover is that when we are applying our courage and we discover that resilience and strength, what it means is we have that much more available to us for use in the future. It's only a theoretical reserve until we tap into it. Once we tap into it, we don't know how deep it is or how far it goes, but we now have an experience and we know something that we did not know before. Once we attempt something that requires courage and we get through it, however well or poorly we do, we get through it, we actually do it. Now we know what we did not know before, which is that isn't going to kill us. So chances are good we could do that again and still survive it the second time as well. Haven't tried parasailing again, but you know, it's out there. Maybe next time I'll jump out of a plane, who knows? Our founder, Ernest Holmes, said, and these are affirmations from my favorite book of his, This Thing Called You. He says, I've placed my reliance in the power, the presence, and the perfection of God. Therefore, I have dominion over all apparent evil. I repudiate all its claims, cast out every fear or belief in that which is not good, and exercise the dominion that by divine right belongs to me. What that means is that within a particular condition or situation, when we do our inner work to release ourselves from attachment to it staying the way it is or changing it to something different, when we do our inner work to be with what is peacefully, one of three things will happen. Either the situation will adjust itself somehow so that it becomes more acceptable to us, or we will get somehow moved out of that situation, or we will change inwardly so that the situation no longer causes us any discomfort. Those are at least three of the ways that the universe responds to that inner work that allows us to go deeply into our center, into our grounding, into our trust in the universe that what is happening can unfold for the highest good. I think about all the gifts of the COVID virus in terms of getting all of us online, people who never thought they could figure out how to use Zoom or email or YouTube or Facebook or come to a meeting or a class online, learned how to do it, how to navigate through our website. Coco really is agreeing with me this morning. I like that. Here is a simple example of what we might try in a situation that requires courage, although for this man it required quite a lot of courage. In 1982, Stephen Callahan was crossing the Atlantic alone in his sailboat when it struck something and sank. He was out of the shipping lanes and floating in a life raft alone. His supplies were few. His chances were small. Yet when three fishermen found him 76 days later, the longest anyone has survived a shipwreck on a life raft alone, he was alive. Much skinnier than he was when he started, but alive. His account of how he survived is fascinating. His ingenuity, how he managed to catch fish, and how he fixed his solar still, evaporating seawater to make it fresh. But the thing that caught my eye, says the author, was how he managed to keep himself going when all hope seemed lost, when there seemed no point in continuing the struggle, when he was suffering greatly, when his life raft was punctured, And after more than a week struggling with his weak body to fix it, more than a week, it was still leaking air and wearing him out to keep pumping it up. He was starved. He was desperately dehydrated. He was thoroughly exhausted. Giving up would have seemed the only sane option. When people survive these kinds of circumstances, they do something with their minds that gives them the courage to keep going. Many people in similarly desperate situations give in or go mad. Something the survivors do with their thoughts helps them find the guts to carry on in spite of overwhelming odds. And this is how he described what he did. I tell myself I can handle it, wrote Callahan in his narrative. Compared to what others have been through, I'm fortunate. I tell myself these things over and over and over, building up fortitude. So in the process of having this horrendous experience, he's drawing his attention to people who have a worse situation than he does, who are living, and therefore says, I can do this. I can get through this. I can survive this. The author says, I wrote that down after I read it. It struck me as something important, and I've told myself the same thing when my own goals seemed far off, or when my problems seemed too overwhelming. And every time I've said it, I have always come back to my senses. The truth is, our circumstances are only bad compared to something better, but others have been through much worse. I've read enough history to know you and I are lucky to be where we are, when we are, no matter how bad it seems to us compared to our fantasies. It's a sane thought and worth thinking. So that little bit of encouragement allows us to consider that there is a way through. There is a way through for us in the most difficult of circumstances. And usually, no matter what our situation is, when we think it's bad, it's in comparison to something we wanted it to be instead, rather than looking at the situation itself. The situation itself, most of the time, for most of us, is really not bad. It's just different than what we wanted or expected. Yeah? So, whether we like it or not, there will be a time when each of us will leave our body temple. We'll leave the old vehicle behind and go on. And when we do that, we want to also make provision for those who come after us, whether we have family or not. So yesterday, I had a luncheon with most of our Legacy Circle donors. And I just want to let you know how much I am grateful for them and how much I honor and respect them for choosing, they didn't have to choose to include Golden Gate in their estate plans. And I just want to name these folks. These are, all these people have said it's okay to name them. Barbara Cox, of course, because she coordinated this whole thing beginning 10 years ago. Gail Durkin, Christine Geiger, Jerry Haas, Michael Hart, Reverend Carroll, Jane Jennings, Suzanne Karch, Linda Kaczynski, Susie Coide, Lynn Law, one of our brand new members, Marilyn Letzos, Erica Schaffer, and Rick Walt. Let's just acknowledge them for making that choice, which may have required some courage in terms of leaving some kind of a legacy to help Golden Gate survive and thrive after they're not with us anymore. And on that note, let's look inside our Follow the Yellow Brick Road journals, which hopefully you've brought with you this morning. And those of you that were here early may not have gotten your bricks yet, but everybody should have a courage brick. If you don't have a courage brick yet, raise your hand, and our ushers will bring one to you. And once we've got bricks, also we want to know if you need a pen, but don't do that now because it'll just confuse people. And then we'll bring pens around to you in just a moment. Inside your journal for Follow the Yellow Brick Road, on page 14, You have a place for notes for today's Sunday talk. You can jot down anything you want to remember there. And also on the page next to it, we have the place where we let go of something that we have fear about in order to bring forward an experience of more courage, of more willingness to take action. What have we been avoiding or hiding from? So on the page that is, talk me out of it. Oh, wave at the ushers if you need pens. Now this is a time if you need a pen for your journal. Yeah. And do we still have extra journals? Do you know, Linda? So talk to Linda right here after the service if you don't have a journal and you need to get one. But pens need to go out. So on this page, there's a quote from Maya Angelou that says, "My great hope is to laugh as much as I cry, to get my work done, and try to love somebody and have the courage to accept love in return." And then what I wrote is basically what I talked about this morning, so I won't say that again. And then the question is, what will you release to begin taking action? In other words, there's some place that you stopped yourself from taking action, probably because of fear. What of that, in that category, are you willing to put down and let go of to experience the freedom to take action with courage? Write down in your journal, whatever that is, that you're willing to release. And then your brick, when you go home, you can glue or tape or paste your, I've got a glue stick up here that I'm going to use to stick mine in here so I don't lose it on the way home. And what you do is glue it in right on top of what you've just said you're letting go of. So you're replacing that with courage. So now your journal looks like that. Yeah. And then on the following 2 pages this week, you have a place to make notes about where you're taking action, where you're demonstrating more courage in your life. It doesn't have to be huge, right? And it gives yourself an opportunity to keep a record of your own progress on this yellow brick road. So I encourage you to use the journal for that purpose. One of the things that sometimes also takes courage for people to consider is whether or not they want to be a part of a community, if they want to join something. How many of you in here have never been a joiner? Yeah, there's a handful of people. And so in that process, people have to decide, and particularly if they've had trauma in previous spiritual communities, if they want to be members of ours. So I want to invite one of our Leadership Council members, Bruce Stagbrook, who's our treasurer, up here to share with you what membership means to him and why he decided to become a member a year ago. Stand on up here, Bruce, so that the camera can see you too.
Hi, everybody. I'm Bruce Stagbrook, and I've been a member of Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living for a little more than a year. So I've always been a seeker. Since I was a kid, I was always looking for the truth in terms of looking at different religions and like transformational trainings and self-development programs. Like the truth is out there somewhere and I'm gonna find it, and when I do, I'll be better. And so I was bouncing around a lot. When I found the Center for Spiritual Living, there was something really different that surprised me here, and that's that the truth was really apparent to me, and it was like a presence, and it wasn't out there, it was in here, inside of me. And I just had that experience so strongly just as I was sitting in the service for the first time. And it just was different than anything I'd found before. So I thought, okay, wow, this is it. And so I thought, well, that's good, but then why would I go from having found the truth to saying, okay, well, I want to be a member here. And for me, being a member is about it's not, it's for me more than anything else. It's so that I can know myself as a part of this community that had me experience the truth inside of myself for everybody. And so knowing that for myself and being a part of this community is really grounding for me. And also it allows me the opportunity to grow through being of service and also receiving love, support, and receiving a lot in return as well. So being a member, to me, that's what it means. So,
Thanks, Bruce. You all know that we welcomed some new members not that long ago, just a couple weeks ago. And there were several people that couldn't take the membership class at the time because they were going to miss one of the 3 sessions. And you have to do all 3 completely to become a member. So I want to let you know I'm going to do another membership class probably sometime in January or February. And so if you didn't get to do it then, maybe you can get yourself ready, and I'll let you know some dates pretty soon so you can make sure your calendar is clear. But that's part of our opportunity to be present here as a community with one another. So let's turn within and anchor our own courage right here and now. In this room, there is an infinite presence. In this presence is everything that exists as a part of itself, including us. This presence is always centered, clear, calm, seeing clearly, knowing deeply, being present. Those capacities show up in us as well as courage and attention and love and service. So I claim for all of us right now that our courage is stoked, that our willingness to look fear in the face and not let it stop us is growing and expanding and empowering us to live the life we want to live with less and less fear holding us back and more awareness of the freedom of choice that we have and the power of resilience and strength we already possess. We are on the yellow brick road, but in one sense, this gift has already been given, and all it requires is our recognition of it and our use of it. So we take that in with gratitude. We bless the awareness that this is already present in us and release this prayer into the creative law of mind and spirit, which automatically acts upon it and cannot say no. I release this prayer into the heart of God, where it has always been the truth and is already done. I let it go and let it be. And together we say, and so it is. Yes. Please stand and join me for this morning's affirmation. My experience of fear has no power to stop me from moving forward. I choose to remember to proceed with awareness and attention rather than to let fear stop me. Each time I do this, my courage to take right action increases, and so it is. Thank you. You could sit down now. So this is a time that we prepare our sacred offering for the week. And I'm going to invite the ushers to come forward. And for those online, if you want to text a donation this morning, you're welcome to do that. The number is on the screen. And for those of you in the room, you can also do that. But also there's a blurb on the back side of your bulletin that tells you all the different ways you can give to Golden Gate if you choose to. For those of you who are giving this morning right here in this room, we're going to bless the offering together that you're about to give. For those of you who have given your offering at other times, automatically, online, whatever, recognize that you also are a gift. So we're going to put our hands over our heart. If you have your gift with you, hold it over your heart as we say our giving affirmation together. And this is it. This gift I give is God in action. I now send it forth to bless and to prosper. I know that everywhere it goes, it is creating a world living in love, one heart and one thought at a time. And so it is. Please go ahead.
Am I nervous? Of course I am. You don't even have to ask. Facing a mystery, anyone would be. One more step and it's out of my hands. There can be no turning back. Can't say what's in front of me, but you know I can't wait to see. This is something I owe to myself. This is something I've just gotta do. I don't know what I'll find, but there's one thing I know about my life. It's gotta be, it's just gotta be true. I remember, of course I do, how I used to hear my heart, what I most wanna be, what I most long to see, but that voice has faded so far away. I hardly recognize myself. What happened to me? No wonder I couldn't breathe. This is something I owe to myself. This is something I've just gotta do. I don't know what I'll find, but there's one thing I know about my life. It's gotta be, yeah, it's just gotta be true. It's been a lifelong habit, gave away my power, playing follow the leader again and again. But my soul won't have it, I won't hide or cower. I'm ready to dive back in. This is something I owe to myself. This is something I've just gotta do. I don't care what I find, 'cause there's one thing I know about my life. It's gotta be, it's just gotta be true. It's gotta be true. It's gotta be true.
Hey, Daniel. Woohoo!
Thanks.
All right. So, we together, on behalf of the Golden Gate Center for Spiritual Living, do accept this offering with gratitude and intentionally bless it and send it out into the world to bring more courage, more clarity, more vision, more peace everywhere it goes, beginning right here in this room. And so it is. You know, I just noticed looking at Daniel's space, he's got all these guitars and stringed instruments and everything behind him, and all of a sudden, I never noticed this before, I don't know if it was there every time and I never saw it, there's a trombone. I'm thinking, who plays the trombone? Does he play the trombone? Maybe that's something we need to get him to do. Might be fun to see what happens. So, if you are here for the very first time with us, I want to direct your attention to the back table, right back there. We have welcome packets for you back there. You recognize them because they say welcome on them. And inside there's a blue card about this big. If you fill that out and give it to Galen at the back table, she's going to give you a little thank you gift. And the thank you gift is a book of affirmations called Nourishing Thoughts. When you're feeling fearful or ungrounded or upset or angry or confused, that little book, you can open it up, you can look at the table of contents and choose something, or just open it up randomly, and it will give you a positive thought that you might apply to your situation. So it's a gift as a thank you for your being here. It's also an invitation to you to come back and be with us again in the future. We would love to have you. Also, I want to thank everybody who helped set up this morning because they did a wonderful job. And I also want to thank Leslie for the simplicity that she created with the Emerald City over there in the bricks that the Frost family provided for us to use during this program. But she's actually got lovely golden candles up here today to match the yellow brick road. So take a quick look at that. Thank you, Leslie. And let's thank everybody for their help this morning. And also, thank you, Galen, for stepping in this morning for Suzanne. I don't know what happened there, but thanks for doing that. Now, I want to let you know, you probably know we just did a session at the food bank, and we're getting ready to do another one on November 14th. So Ellen Nicosia needs to know by November 7th if you'd like to participate in that. It's just 2 hours. We do this once a month, but you don't have to sign up for every month. Just let her know if you'd like to be on the list for November 14th. We do that at the warehouse in San Rafael, and just basically pack boxes and stuff that will go for local distribution closer to the families themselves. Also, the Women's Drumming Circle is back, and that's happening every month again. Now it's restarted itself as of last month. So Wednesday, November 15th, from 7 to 8:30 at Unity in Marin, the group of women doing the drumming is led by Barbara Borden, who is a professional drummer. And if you'd like to know more about women's drumming, you can talk to Lori Greer, one of our prayer practitioners. She's been involved in that, and she can tell you how it works. They do appreciate registration. You can see the link up here for that, but no one will be turned away for lack of funds. So that's always a good thing. Also, if you happen to sing, you might want to consider coming and joining Bruce and a little group of our folks at 9:20 on Sunday morning. They got started again this morning, where they hover over here if the weather's poor, and it is getting colder, I imagine now. So they hover over here and sing some songs together, and hopefully we'll have them singing something for us as their gift to the community before too much longer. But talk to Bruce if you'd like to participate. Also, the last 2 weeks we didn't have Wednesday night meditation, but we are having it this Wednesday night coming up, and that is a guided meditation. Everybody's welcome. You can access it through the Zoom link. You go to the date on the calendar, click the event, and it'll take you to the page where you can find the Zoom link. And we'd love to have you join us. Also, remember, you can always put in a prayer request in the box. And after the Sunday morning service, you can go over to the table and ask one of the practitioners there to pray with you. They're always available. So Joyce is over here on her own this morning, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't ask her for a prayer. She can pump them out for you, and you'll be glad you got one. So if you do that, that doesn't mean you can't put a prayer in the box or request a prayer from the website online under the Resources tab. So now I'm going to invite the practitioners to surround the room, and let's join together in consciousness in blessing ourselves and this day, the wonderful rain, and the greater courage that is being born in us at this very moment. So just know that the consciousness of this circle is now enfolding you all. And for those of us on the outside, we too are receiving the flow of these prayers. So this is called a chamber of prayer. We're all going to speak at the same time in our own way. And so it is. Please stand now and join us in the closing blessing and the closing song. So we say this also together. I now walk so that whoever walks beside me dwells in the presence of God, and whoever places a hand in mine is lifted, and whoever thinks of me is illumined with God consciousness, for spirit and all people and I are one eternally. And so it is. We know this one.
All right, one more song for you all. It's a pleasure as always. I've done this one with you before. If you don't remember it, make something up. Here we go. And have a great Sunday. Swing wide the doors, the time is right. Swing wide the doors to let in the light. Bring in the dawn for humankind. Swing wide the doors of this heart of mine. I'm not holding it in anymore. I'm gonna shout it out loud. I understand now what I'm here for and what this life is about. It's about love, it's about laughter, it's about comfort and smiles. It's about love, it's about kindness, it's about hearts open wide. It's about love, it's about passion, it's about taking a chance. It's about love, it's about service, it's about lending a hand. It's about lending a hand. One more time. Swing wide the doors, the time is right. Swing wide the doors to let in the light. Bring in the dawn for humankind. Swing wide the doors of this heart of mine. Swing wide the doors of this heart of mine. Thank you so much.